All right, in this video, we're going to be talking about the basics of renting an apartment. All right, so let's go and get started. Now, when you decide to rent an apartment, there's quite a few things that you're going to have to know. First off, these definitions here. Now, I'm not going to spend much time on this. In fact, I'll pretty much spend no time on this, and I'll just let you guys pause the video and kind of look over everything. It's pretty self-explanatory. All right, but this is everything that's involved when it comes to renting an apartment. Now, some of just a little bit of add on to what we just went over, and that is some of the 12 most overlooked costs of renting an apartment. You can kind of see there. Because a lot of times students look at an apartment as like, oh, it's just something that you pay per month. But there's also a lot of other things that you have to pay to make sure that your renting experience goes smoothly. All right, so I'll give you a second to look right there. All right, so here we go. Now, I went ahead and gave the answers, so we're just going to work to the answers. So hopefully that's not going to be a distraction, but I just kind of wanted to make this to go as smoothly as possible. So John and Sarah paid a $200 application deposit for a 1,200 square foot apartment in the city. The monthly rent is $800, and they are required to provide a credit report that costs 25 bucks and pay a security deposit. All right. The landlord also requires the last month's rent at the time of the lease. The broker charged 1% of the lease. All right, so how much should they expect? All right, now here's where a lot of people kind of get confused, and that is when you go into an apartment complex, you just can't knock on the door and say, hey, I want to move in. You know, here's my money. I want to move in. It doesn't work that way. You actually have to go through a process, and this is what we're doing. All right, so first off, when you sign up or apply to rent an apartment, the first thing you got to do is pay or you got to fill out an application. Now, sometimes these applications cost money. Sometimes they don't. In this example, they do. It says the monthly rent is 800, okay, and they are to provide a credit report that they cost 25 bucks. So again, they're not going to just give anybody an apartment. They're going to make sure that if they give you an apartment, you're going to be able to pay the bill. So that's why they ask a credit report. All right. All right. So they are also required to pay a security deposit equal to 1 month's rent. All right. The landlord also requires the last month's rent to be paid. Okay, so that means you're paying the common term first and last months. That's where this comes from. And then also, now not all apartments have this, but it says the broker charged 1% of the yearly rent. How much should be expected? All right, so we got to add a couple things. First off, we have got to add. All right, so let's kind of get our numbers down. We got to add the application deposit. Okay, we got to add the credit report. Okay, we have to, if you should keep reading, we got to do the security deposit. All right, we got to do that. And then let's see, the landlord also wants the last month's rent. So we got to go ahead and prepay last month's rent. All right. So that right there are the things that we need to add up. All right. So with that being said, let's go and add all this stuff up. So the application deposit, let's go. All right, it was 200 bucks plus credit report. There's an additional 25 plus. Ooh, I forgot one thing. The broker. Oh, hold on. Plus the broker's fee or the broker's charge. All right, let me put that right there just so we can see it. All right, sorry about that. You were probably yelling at the screen saying I forgot it. All right, what else? I knew I was forgetting something. All right, so we got to pay a security deposit. That's 800 bucks. It also wants the last month's rent, which is another $800. All right, and then we got to do the broker's charge. All right, so that's 1% of the yearly rate. All right, so what I'm going to do is 1%, 0.01 is 1%, sorry, plus 0.01. Now the yearly rent is nothing more than 800 times 12. We're going to get our number there. All right, so there we go. When we do all that, we get, now depending on how the question is going to be asked, they're required to pay upfront $1,921. But there's one thing that we haven't, the question hadn't talked about, and that was they still haven't paid first month's rent. So if the question was worded where you got to pay first month's rent, that would be an additional $800. All right, so an additional $800, which means the answer would be 1,000. $271. I'm sorry, $2,721. All right, so a lot of money. All right, example number two. All right, so Jill's considering. So basically, example number one, example number two are the exact same thing. The only difference is just the way the question is worded. So here it's more of a kind of like a bullet point list here that we have to walk through. Here it was more like a paragraph. So most of the questions will look like example number two. So application fee, $50, $25. Security deposit. All right, so the security deposit is equal to 1 month's rent, which most security deposits will equal 1 month's rent, which is $750. First and last month's rent. So in this example, they want us to add first and last month's rent, so that's 750 plus another 750. And then the broker's fee is 2% of the yearly rent. Now, for folks that are wondering, what is a broker? Basically, a broker, I like to keep things simple, and that is a, it's kind of like a money man that would be the go-between between the apartment complex and the tenant. It kind of handles all the paperwork, all the money matters, so to speak. So it would be 2% times 750 times 12. All right. So we'll go ahead and do that here. And this is a relatively simple concept. So all we're doing is just multiplying and adding. So 0.02 times 750 times 12. That gives me 180. So all the things that we have to add up in this example. So how much money will Jill pay to move into the apartment complex? 50, 25, 750, 750, 750, and then 80. Add all that up, you're at 2,505. All right, a lot of money, but a couple of things. Well, it's a lot of money. All right, but here's the things to understand, and that is when it comes to all this money that's being paid, the security deposit is something that you should get money back. Okay. First and last month's rent, you already prepaid last month's rent, so that's technically 1 month you get free at the end of the lease. Now, granted, when I say free, I'm using that term very loosely here. All right, now let's talk about the security deposit because technically you should get that back. So Tom paid a security deposit $800 when he signed his lease a year ago. While living in an apartment, he accidentally knocked a hole in the wall. He did not tell the management company until he moved out, and the apartment complex had to fix the wall and it cost $100. How much will Tom get back? Well, again, a security deposit is nothing more than money that you give the apartment complex just in case a repair needs to be made. Okay, so this is a repair above and beyond normal wear and tear. All right, so putting a hole in the wall would definitely be something that is above normal wear and tear. So very simply, if he paid $800 and it cost $100 to fix the hole in the wall, well, a simple subtraction problem, 800 minus 100, you get $700. So that means Tom would get back $700 from his security deposit. Because remember, security deposits, if everything goes well, you get your money back. So, like, for example, question number 4. Brenda paid a security deposit of $500 when she signed her lease. She ended up renting the apartment for 2 years. After she moved out, the apartment complex painted all the walls and replaced the carpet. How much will Brenda get back for her security deposit? Now, if you notice, the answer is 500. Even though they had to paint all the walls and then replace the carpet, this is considered normal wear and tear. So walls and carpet are considered normal wears and tear. So what that means is the security deposit she would get back in full because she did not damage her apartment. All right. Now, example number 5 is where it gets a little more tricky. And that is Susie's financial advisor believes that she would spend no more than 22% of her gross monthly income for housing. She has determined that that amount is $1,100 per month. Based on this amount and her advisor's recommendation, what is her annual salary? All right, so here we're just diving into the math portion of this lesson. And that is what we're doing is we're taking 22% and then we're figuring out what is her annual salary. So there's a couple things you need to do. All right. If you want to create a proportion, you can. All right, so the first proportion would be 1,100 over 22%, okay, is equal to how much money does she make a month over 100%. All right, so if you want to create a proportion, you can feel free to do so. That's one way to do it. So 1,100 times 100 divided by 22 this person makes, Susie makes, she makes $5,000 a month. Okay. Now, one of the biggest challenges to remember, and that is the way you set the proportion up. The proportion is set up per month, which means your answer is going to be in the form of the months. But the question is, what is her annual salary? Her annual salary, very simply, is taking her monthly salary and then just timesing it by 12. That's it. That's how easy it is. All right. So, question number 6. Jose wants to rent a two-bedroom apartment for $760 a month. His gross annual income is $32,500. What percent of his monthly income would he use to pay his rent? All right. So what we're dealing with is, if you read, we're dealing with his monthly rent, and we're dealing with his annual income. All right. So obviously we can't compare monthly to annually. So we're going to have to do a quick division problem. He's making 32,500. We're going to divide that by 12, and we're going to end up with. So when I divide this by 12, I'm going to round this to the nearest whole because I don't want to deal with decimals. All right. So that means Jose is going to make $2,708 a month. Okay. So when we try to find the percentage, very simply, what we're going to do is we're going to take the rent and divide it by how much he's making per month. So it's going to be 760 divided by 2,708, which gives us 28%. All right. Now, would Jose be considered house poor? Now, this is obviously open to interpretation. Most financial people want your rent to make up 25% of your budget to go to rent, but I've actually heard some estimates to be as high as 28%. So would he be considered house poor? Possibly, but 25% is the ideal percent, but 28% is technically okay. All right. Now, Jessica's financial advisor believes that she should be spending no more than 28% of her gross. Oh, I think this is the exact same question as example number 5. All right. So, exact same question, different numbers. So, again, 28%. This is how much this person is making. I just like to create a proportion. It's easier. I'm a proportion guy. So, 1950. Now, some people are going to ask, do I need to put 28% as 0.28? I don't. I leave it as an actual percentage when I put it in proportion format. All right. I just leave it in as a whole 28. So 1950 divided by 1950 times 100 divided by 28%. All right. So again, I'm going to get an ugly decimal, but I'm just going to go ahead and convert to nearest whole. All right. I get $6,964 a month. This is how much money this person is making per month. The biggest problem students have is remembering that this X, when you get X, it means monthly. So that means you need to take monthly and times it by 12. And you would get 83,005. Now, depending on how you round it, you might get a number different than mine, but if you get something close, we're good. All right. Now, at this point, it now turns into a review. So I'm going to stop talking because a lot of this is stuff that we've already seen. Now, I appreciate you listening. Hopefully, I explained it to where you can understand it. Now start answering questions on your own. If you have any questions, just let me know. Thanks again for watching. Bye-bye.